I think we're all ready to get this Intro to AgSat webinar started now. Good morning and welcome. Hope everybody's doing well. We'll start off by introducing myself if you don't know already. My name's Amanda Taylor with a Quanti here in Waterloo, Ontario. I also have Derek on the line with me here producing the webinar behind the scenes. A Quanti is a partner with the Alberta Federation of Agriculture in the development of AgSat. As you know, satellite-based data is getting more and more important to farm production in Canada. We and AFA wondered whether cost might be a barrier to some producers that are adopting this technology, and we think it should be available to everybody on reasonable terms. We built AgSat to provide the essentials at less cost than some other platforms out there. Are we on the right track? Well, we hope that you, as an AgSat tester, can help us answer that question. In the next 20 to 30 minutes, I'll review the AgSat toolkit and how it's used. First, I'll be showing you all of the map layers available in AgSat. I'll look at Western Canada overall, and then we'll zoom in on one field we call an area of interest and show those tools at a field level. If you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A and we'll get to all those at the end of this presentation. So let's get started. I'm just going to share my screen now. So right now, I've just taken you to agsat.ca. So when you first land on this page, you'll have to log in the upper right corner. On the login page, if you haven't created your account yet, you can click on sign up and enter all your information here. If you're signing up as one of our beta testers, we ask that you please click the I have an account code activation code here and fill it in from what was sent to you in the email. After you've filled this out, click to sign up, you should receive a confirmation email to make sure that your email matches. So I'm just going to sign in because I already have an account here. So when you log into AgSat, it takes you to this areas of interest page. We sometimes call areas of interest AOIs for short. So if you hear me using that terminology, I'm referring to these areas of interest, which are your fields that you create yourself that you want to monitor. So the first time you log in here as a new tester, you won't see anything on this page. So in order to create your AOIs and look at the different maps that are available in AgSat, you'll have to go to the AgSat toolbox. That can be found here on the left. So the view you'll see when you first log in here is this wide view of Western Ontario. I'll just start by telling you how you can move around this map. Or sorry, Western Canada, that's my mistake. Flub there. So you can pan around the map just by clicking and dragging pretty simply. You can zoom in using your mouse wheel. Or if it's easier for you, you can use these plus and minus buttons to zoom in or out. So let's first take a look at kind of the general data sets that you can interact with in AgSat without having to create any areas of interest of your own first. So these are kind of wide view data sets. If you go to this little symbol in the upper right corner called this like the little map layers drop down, you'll see 4 different categories here where you can expand to see what is available to you. We'll look at this first category, base maps. So we're already looking at one of them right now. This is OpenStreetMaps. This is essentially like a street road map that shows you cities and locations. It can be useful for generally orienting yourself if you're looking for your land in a particular region. As well, we have this Esri World Imagery layer, which is a high resolution satellite imagery. So this can be really useful if you're trying to delineate a specific field that, say, wouldn't be visible in this OpenStreetMaps view. So this is high resolution, but not necessarily recent. It is updated as new information is available through Esri, but we can't guarantee any particular timestamp on any of this. And you'll even notice it changes as you zoom in and out, just to give you the appropriate resolution as you're zooming. So if we close that and go to the next category down, satellite imagery. So this MODIS Terra True Color is the satellite imagery that we currently have available for all of Canada. If we just zoom out a bit, it might take a moment to load. So this MODIS Terra True Color imagery is available for the entire world, and it is updated every day. Now it's quite low resolution. You can kind of see as you zoom in, it becomes quite pixelated. So on a farm level, you're probably not going to see too many details, but it can be useful for determining what the general cloud cover could be on a particular day if you're looking to get some higher resolution imagery. So this is available for the past 2 weeks. So there's one for every day. Okay, so we'll move on. Let's see. So yes, you'll notice this black actually. I should probably mention this because you might wonder what's going on. So if we're looking at today's imagery isn't actually ready yet. It hasn't been collected yet. So you'll notice that there's nothing available. So if you go back to the previous day, you'll be able to see the previous day's data. So we're going to move on now to the nowcast layers. So these layers are available, they're updated fairly regularly. It's slightly different for each layer. This first one is SNODAS, which is snow cover. You'll notice you're not seeing anything right now because it defaults to today's date. And of course, there's no snow in early September. So we're just going to go back to, say, sometime in March. Give it a moment to load. So this layer here shows you the snow water equivalent in millimeters. Notice this legend in the bottom right corner from 0 up to 300 millimeters. And you would use this time slider or the little arrows to see how that snow cover changes over time. So this, I didn't say the resolution of this data. So this is approximately a 1 kilometer grid. Next, we have the soil moisture layer. This is for the top 10 centimeters. You'll notice here 10 centimeters, the top 10 centimeters of soil. This is another fairly coarse data set. It's available through the Government of Canada. It's about a 2.5 kilometer grid. So this tells us, if you see in the bottom right, the volumetric soil moisture content. Basically, the volume of water per volume of soil. Drier areas are kind of these beige and white, up into these blue and greens in the wetter areas. One thing to note too about when you see 0 in the winter in particular, this can also mean that the ground is frozen. Next, we have our soil temperature at surface. So just like the previous layer we looked at for soil moisture, this is a Government of Canada layer on a 2.5 kilometer grid. It is also available for quite a few months back. If you want to go back and look at soil temperature, see it's still frozen back in early April and how that changes through the growing season. So these next two layers are both precipitation related. We have a 24-hour accumulated precipitation and a weather radar precipitation. We'll take a look at the weather radar precip first. Just zoom out a bit. Give it a moment to load. Just going to do a refresh here. Yeah, just a note that things are still in beta a little bit, so usually refreshing will fix. There we go. So here's the weather radar precipitation we'll take a look over here in Ontario because there's some active weather. So this layer is available for the last 3 hours and is available on like 10-minute increments. So here I've gone back a couple hours. See in the bottom right, this is measured in millimeters per hour. So how much rain is happening in a given, at the rate essentially of rainfall. And you can scroll through to see how this changes over the recent past. So if you're interested in seeing something that's over a longer time period backwards in time, you can take a look at the 24-hour accumulated precipitation. Just go back a day. Yeah. Sorry, my internet is having some issues this morning. I apologize. There we go. Okay, so this is for the last day, the 24-hour accumulated precipitation. This is measured in the quantity of precipitation over the whole 24-hour period in millimeters. So for this, we can look back for the last couple weeks of precipitation. So again, this is a Government of Canada layer, so it's also on quite a coarse grid. Depending on your internet connection, these tiles can take a little bit to load. Next, we'll go on to our static data sets. So different than the nowcast, so basically these data sets don't change all that often. First, we have the Canadian land inventory. So I'll just zoom out and give you kind of the idea of the coverage. Oops. Apologies, zoomed out way too far there. Give you an idea of the coverage of this data set. Okay, we'll take a zoom in. So the Canadian land inventory basically gives you an idea of the general suitability of an area of land towards agriculture. It doesn't necessarily mean that if something has restrictions that it cannot be farmed. Just some factors to be aware of. So you'll notice here, if you hover your mouse over a color, it tells you what that color means, as well as some additional details on why it might have been given the classification of, say, severe limitations. Next, we have the annual crop inventory layer. We'll zoom out again. So this annual crop inventory is produced by Agri-Food Canada from remotely sensed data. It's about 85% accuracy, target accuracy. So it's not necessarily going to be 100% accurate for every single field, but as a whole, it should be fairly consistent with what is present during a given year on your fields. I'll just zoom in a bit. So this is available back to 2009 at the earliest. And And you'll notice that the older layers have a significantly lesser area of coverage. They were only for the prairie provinces here. So while it's under maintenance at the moment, we will have a tooltip that allows you to hover over these colors the same way that, as I showed with the previous layer, that could tell you what each of these mean. And that can be useful for you to see how things have changed over time, how crops have been rotated through different fields. Next, we'll take a look at the Canadian Detailed Soil Survey layer. So this is another AFC data set. So you can see here, I can hover over a given polygon and some soil properties pop up based on what I'm hovering over. So if you want to know what these codes mean, if you don't know what they mean, we have this legend available in the bottom right that you can click through for what each of these mean. If you need kind of additional description, you can also go to the glossary for more explanation there. So moving on to the next, we have a shaded relief. Both this and the provincial digital elevation model both are representative of topography, elevation in just a slightly different context and view. So this shaded relief, you can kind of get a general idea of the smoothness, roughness, general changes in elevation. And the provincial digital elevation model shows you the actual elevations in meters above sea level. So I'm just going to do a quick refresh here before I show you kind of the more AOI specific tools and drawing tools. So I guess this is a good reminder for anybody. If you do have any questions as I'm going along, please just put them in the Q&A and we'll get to those at the end. Okay, so we'll just go through these tools that are all on the left side over here. I'll zoom in a bit to kind of this area I'm interested in, and I'll turn on the Esri World imagery so I can actually see what's going on. Okay. So this first tool here is just a little toggle in and out of full screen mode, depending if you want to utilize more of your screen when you're drawing. So first thing you have to keep in mind is this toggle here between draw mode, which is represented by the pencil, and measure mode, which is represented by this little square. So in order to draw your areas of interest, you have to be in draw mode. So it's active when it's black in the background. Or if I toggle into measure mode, notice a few tools disappear. Now measure mode is active. So anything you would draw in measure mode is drawn the same way as it is in draw mode. It just won't permanently be saved to your account and is only used for measuring areas. So let's start off over here. Say I'm interested in drawing an area of interest for this particular field. So we have three different shapes that are available for drawing. So this first one is custom, lets you draw freely, whatever kind of shape you want. And we have a square, a rectangle AOI, which is good for if you're drawing like a full section or quarter section, and a circle, pretty self-explanatory. So we will start with the custom shape tool because this is an irregularly shaped field. So notice when I clicked on it, this little menu popped out to let you know that you're actually in this custom shape drawing tool. And my cursor changed, telling me click to start drawing shape. So it gives you kind of instructions as you go. So it should be fairly intuitive. So I'm going to start drawing at the corner of my AOI. And as it says, I'm going to click to continue drawing the shape. So say I made a mistake and drew a point that I didn't really want it there. I can use this delete last point to go back as many points really as I want. and then I can continue drawing from there. So then in order to close the shape, see the instructions have changed a bit here. I click the first point to close the shape, and it automatically finishes it for me. So if I click on this AOI, notice it's kind of got this untitled, and I can call it whatever I want. So we'll call this my new area of interest. You can see the area that you've drawn. You have options for whichever units of area measure make most sense to you, and you can enter any kind of notes. If you press OK, it automatically saves, and the next time we click on it, it'll be here. So now's a good time to note that we also have this little slide out menu on the right, which has a list of all the AOIs you've drawn. Notice it added this new AOI that I just drew to the bottom of this list. So I can use this list actually to navigate between ones I've already drawn before and back to the ones I just drew. There's also a little user guide here if you need like a quick refresher on how to draw these AOIs, areas of interest. I'm going to close this. So the next two tools are just really a matter of click and drag. So with the square or rectangle, you start in the corner and finish at the diagonally opposite corner. The circle, you'd start in the center and let go when you're happy with the size. So if we decided we wanted to modify any of these after we had already drawn them, the next tool down is the Edit Layers tool. So when I click that, notice that all of these corners of the areas of interest I drew turned white. So this then gives me the ability to drag them, move them however I want. Notice that if some of these changes I make, it's adding additional kind of control points that I can drag to create the shape I want. And I can adjust these. So if I'm happy with these changes, I'll press save. Next is the delete tool. So if I said, oh, I didn't really want some of these, I can just click on them to remove and click save, and they're gone. So for the next thing, we will click on our AOI, our area of interest, and go to the Imagery Store. So this is where you can order higher resolution imagery for your areas of interest. So this is more detailed than what is available through those map layers that I showed you earlier. There's a few different imagery types that you can order. The first is true color, and that's going to look pretty similar to what we were looking at in the Modus true color, except at a higher resolution. The normalized difference vegetation index. Notice some of these things, if you hover over them, it gives you a little extra explanation of what it is. So this is if we wanted to track how the amount of vegetation on our land is changing, and the normalized difference wetness index would be the amount of water. So I'll just do an example here of how you might put in an imagery order. So we pick our imagery type. We'll pick NDVI. And next we have to choose a resolution. So right now, and with any subscription that you have to AgSat, you'll be able to access as much low or 10 meter free imagery as you want. That's included in the subscription. We'll soon have the high 1 meter resolution imagery coming that you can order for your areas of interest kind of at an extra fee, and that will depend on the size of your area. If you do need this sooner, you can contact us. So today we'll just do a low resolution imagery search. So the next thing you can choose is the date range. So that is the span of time for which you're interested in images. So say we were wanting the whole month of August. You would click on the first date, click on the end date, and then you would say, okay, how many images do I want for the month of August? Do I want to ask for an image for every day, one for every week, or just the best one for the month kind of thing? So it should be noted here that if you do ask for daily, you won't receive an image for every single day. This is kind of dependent on how often the satellites have come over your land. There might not just be any images that were taken on a particular day, or it could be that when the satellites came by, it was perhaps too cloudy to get a clear image, so you might not receive any results. So we'll just choose weekly in our example. So I'm going to run the search, but I'm going to cancel it just for the sake of presentation, so we don't have to sit and wait for that to run through. So you would click search for imagery and you would get this updated status here that your imagery search is being processed. I'll just run it for a little bit longer. So see it start searching for each week within this interval, one image, and you get an update as this goes. So say you made a mistake and you say didn't actually want what you've searched for. You can click the cancel button and that will stop this search from running. So if you did run this search, the images would show up in your imagery library. So we're just going to go to a different AOI. So I can show you what that will look like in the image library. So this is one that I had run an image search on, or 3 image searches in the past. You can see I searched for each of the 3 different types of images and received 3 to 4 results for each one. So if you wanted to view these images, you would click on this search result in this menu, and then a little pop-up would appear with previews of what these images look like. You can download them onto your own computer from here, or you can view them in the AgSat toolbox. I'll show you how that works, but unfortunately, the image drawing is under maintenance at the moment, so you won't actually see the image, but I can show you how that interaction goes. So when you go to view the image, this little pop-up would appear above that has each of our image search results, and then you could use the time slider as before to go through them and view them. And to close it, you just press the X. So the last thing that I would want to show you are some of these calculators that are also available to you for your areas of interest. So the first is a depression storage calculator. What you would use this for is, say, if you have ponds or low spots on your land that you know fill up with water, you could get an estimation of how much water is held in those depressions. So you would simply fill this out. So say you know the average depth of what those depressions are, say it's 1 meter, and the percent coverage of that your area of interest that is covered. So say it was 10%, and then it would tell you the estimated volume of water that is held in those depressions. If you did attribute some monetary value to that, you could also put that in the calculator here, and it would spit out a dollar value as well. So one way you could actually kind of figure out what this percent coverage was, if you didn't know that off the top of your head, would be, say, to use these measure tools here to figure out, so say this whole area was a depression, you could figure out how many hectares it is and then divide that by the total area in hectares here to get that percentage. And lastly, we have the carbon calculator. So this calculator would be used, so if you're planning on changing any of your management practices that would increase the amount of soil organic carbon that is stored on your land, you could use this calculator to figure out what the monetary equivalent value of CO2 in dollars per ton is. So to use this calculator, it's best if you have measured values for your land. If you've done any kind of soil surveys, things like that, you could enter them in here. So say we'll enter 30 centimeters of soil. Say you're farming 90% of this land area. You know that your initial soil carbon level is, say, 1.5, and it's going to increase to 1.65. If you've done a soil bulk density test, you can enter that value here, and then the value of CO2. So see, this would tell you what the estimated lifetime sequestration tons of CO2 is, as well as the estimated total value of carbon storage for this amount. So you can exit that. So I just wanted to mention, aside from the higher resolution satellite imagery that we're going to be implementing through the image search windows, we do have some new coming soon features that we're going to want our beta testers to test out once they're ready. So one of those things is going to be a new layer in the Nowcast window. It's going to be here with the accumulated precipitation and weather radar layers. And this is going to be like a total growing season accumulated precipitation map that you'll be able to look back for a particular day, how much rain has fallen within the growing season up to that day. And another one is going to be, it's going to show up within your areas of interest menu, and that will be a time series for growing degree days. So we will let you know when these new features are implemented so that you can test them out for us and give us your feedback. Let us know if they're useful to you, if you're happy with them. Just to finish off, I want to make sure to point out to you, we have some useful kind of tools here at the left-hand side. We have an FAQs page if you want to know anything more about the app. A glossary, which you can search for if there's particular terms you don't know the meaning of that have showed up within the interface. This interactive tutorials page where you can kind of go through. This should cover everything from image search, drawing tools, and the different map layers that are available, as well as this provide feedback page. So of course you can always email us at agsat@guanti.com, but you can also provide feedback, which is very valuable to us, and do it through this interface here. So I guess that would be it for me. I really would like to thank you all for showing up and listening to this webinar, and now we'll kind of get to your questions. Okay, so I don't know, Derek, let's see all of the questions. Okay, so our first question here is from Grace. She says, can you explain what period of time is covered by each 24 hours precip and show how you check individual land parcels? Okay, so each 24 hours is, I believe, from 6 a.m. Was that correct, Derek? Okay, so yeah. So from 6 a.m. To 6 a.m., that's the 24-hour period for precipitation. And by checking individual land parcels, if you mean in relation to the 24-hour precipitation, you would just have that layer turned on and zoom to your land parcel, and then you could see what it is for your land parcel. Although keep in mind it's fairly coarse resolution. So hopefully some of our time series tools can also be able to show you some of this for your individual areas of interest. So someone asked, what is the best internet platform to use? Google Chrome, Firefox, etc. So it has been tested for Google Chrome and Firefox. So essentially modern browsers, really. Either Chrome or Firefox is fine if you have a preference. And I think that the newer versions of Edge should also be fine. Just really want to make sure you're using a modern browser. And if you do run into any issues using a particular browser, you can always contact us about that. So when will high resolution be available is Grace's next question. So the actual tool should be implemented by January 2021 at the latest. This is also when more high resolution imagery becomes available to us, kind of in the new year. Someone comments here, I've been trying to download the NDVI map. Yeah, the NDVI map, and it seems it's stuck in a loop and won't show anything. Is there issue in the background, i.e. maintenance? Yes, so as you saw today in our presentation, we are running some maintenance on this to get these images showing up in the windows themselves. So if this is something that you are encountering, could you contact us so that we could contact you when it's been resolved? In the meantime, you could download the PNG if you did want to see that imagery. You could view it outside of AgSat. Okay. So I think if that's it for questions, I will invite you to contact us if there's anything that we haven't explained sufficiently for you today. We'll also be making this video available for other users who weren't able to attend today so that they could get the same information that everyone here has. So thank you so much for attending, and we really look forward to hearing your feedback and any potential improvements that you could see for your own uses in this platform.